Hello and welcome back to my storytelling channel. This is Hua. Happy autumn. Today is the first day of autumn. The leaves are beginning to turn colors and we are setting forth to a colder season that is coming forward to us. I hope that you are well and that you are surrounded by people you love. Today I am here to read a fictional thriller that I wrote for the entertainment of everybody. And this story is called Westminster Murders. I hope that you enjoy it.
없지 널 본 적이 없으니까 You keep me up every night 내 빛의 띠같이 마침표 없는 dream I can't help falling in love Maybe I just wanna feel like you la 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 Next to me right here right now 밝아오는 아침이 약속할 만큼 난 너를 더 알고 싶어 Just like You're beautiful nightmare You're beautiful nightmare Beautiful nightmare And I want to stay there with you
The nursing room was buzzing with a faint sound of a heart monitor as Terry walked in, her hands full of bags for her mother. Everyone was chattering, full of stories to share as the holidays were coming up. Many elderlies were holding brightly wrapped boxes with bows. Terry looked around and her mother was nowhere in sight. Seeing an orderly, she walked over and asked, "Hi, where's Cassie?" The orderly, a bright-eyed, red-haired colored woman, replied, "Cassie is in her room. She refused to come down, but now that you're here, perhaps you can get her to change her mind?" Terry thanked her and quickly ran up the stairs to the second floor, to room 298, and knocked on the door before opening it. Walking in, she heard the faint sound of holiday music playing, and she saw her mother sitting in a chair by the window, looking out to the frozen land of the cold Chicago city. "Mom, why don't I help you get dressed and we can go join the rest of the group?" Terry asked as she set the bags down on the bed. She walked to the closet and began searching through her mother's clothes. "What would you like to wear today?" She deserved it. Terry froze, not quite sure if she heard her mother right. She turned to find her mother was still looking out, her white hair a mass of knotted strands together on her head. "What, Mom?" She deserved it. Terry walked toward her mother and placed a hand on her shoulder, turning her around. The moment she met her mother's eyes, she felt something inside her drop. Her mother held a cold stare, something she'd never seen before. But her mother's eyes held nothing but truth. "What are you talking about?" Terry asked. And then her mother's eyes shifted to the corner of the room. "He's been waiting for me since I arrived, but I'm never going to let the bastard take me without fighting first." Terry turned and looked where her mother's eyes were staring, and then she turned back around to find her mother still looking in the same corner. "Mom, let's get you dressed." As Terry turned to go, her mother reached out and grabbed her hands, forcing her to almost lose her balance. And then her mother turned her eyes to gaze at her, and slowly she whispered, "Don't let him catch you." After she said that, she simply turned back to look at the window, and Terry felt her body shiver. What was that all about? "Has my mother been acting strange lately?" Terry asked, as she signed herself out on the guest list. The nurse who was standing beside her looked up at her with a forceful smile. She had aging brown hair that needed a dye, and her eyeliner was too heavy. "She's been herself on some days, and other days she's not. You know, with Alzheimer's, it's always a guessing game. She hasn't hurt herself lately, so that's always a good thing," she replied. Terry smiled and gathered her keys from her purse. "Thank you. Call me if there's anything you need." "I will. Thanks for coming by to see her. See you again soon." The busy Chicago streets were consumed with the afternoon traffic, and Terry was afraid she'd be late at this rate. Her daughter was going to hate her for missing her winter concert. Her ex-husband wasn't going to be there, and if she showed up late, Claire would throw a fit. 4 years ago, her mother had showed signs for early Alzheimer's, and she brought her to live with her. But it had put a strain on her marriage, and she finally put her mother into a nursing home. but he still didn't save her marriage. Brad still left her, and she blamed a lot of it on herself. They were co-parenting their 6-year-old daughter Claire, but it felt more like she did all the heavy work. Brad just seemed to claim credits where he didn't deserve. Claire bounced between her home and Brad's throughout the week, and she felt guilty when she saw the exhaustion in her daughter's eyes. But what could she do? Brad no longer wanted her, and he didn't care if Claire saw it or not. When she finally pulled into the parking lot, she was 20 minutes late, and she was cursing at herself. Just as she was about to open the door, she heard her name being called. She turned around, and a strange man wearing a tan trench coat started walking up to her. "Terry," he called again. "Yes, who are you?" "Terry, I need to talk to you." "I'm so sorry, but I'm late to my daughter's concert." As she turned to go, he replied, "It's regarding your mother." Terry felt her mouth go dry as she asked, "What about my mother?" He then pulled out an ID badge. "I'm FBI agent Chad Potter. I need to talk to you about your mother." "What is this about?" Chad looked around and then he replied, "Are you sure you want to do this here?" "Can this wait? I'm really late to my daughter's concert. Give me your number and I'll call you to arrange a time to talk." He pulled into his pocket and handed her a card. "Thank you. I'll be in touch." Terry rushed into the school building and heard music playing throughout the hall. She raced to the double doors of the gymnasium and pulled one of the doors open. It was full, and the stage was brightly decorated with wreaths and silver bells. She snuck through a few parents photographing and finally found a seat. When she looked up at the stage, Claire was standing, singing with the rest. She waved, and when her daughter's eyes caught hers, a smile appeared. Thank God, she thought as she let out a deep breath, but her heart remained heavy with the encounter of Chad. She actually forgot to call Chad until a week later when she was rummaging through her purse and found his wrinkled card. She cursed and picked up the phone, dialing his number quickly. It rang twice before he picked up. "Hi, Chad, this is Terry. I'm so sorry. I forgot about you." "It's no worries. Where can we meet?" Do you know the cafe on Broadway and First between the new gas station and the old rundown mill?" "Yes, I do. I'll meet you there in half an hour." When Terry arrived, it was exactly as she had hoped it would be. Very quiet. She bought a large cup of coffee and brought a laptop to sit at one of the open tables. She'd written 4 pages when Chad arrived wearing all black and carrying a folder. He was a rather handsome, rugged man, and now that she had a good look at him, he did appear to be a very FBI-looking man. "Good afternoon. Can I get you a cup of coffee?" Terry asked. "No, I'm staying away from caffeine." "How about tea, then?" "Sure, but I can get it myself." He walked to order and then joined her. "Thanks for meeting me." "Yeah, although I'm not sure what this is about." She removed a few photos from the folder and laid it on the table. There were 8 by 10 black and white photos of a murder scene. Terry made a noise and turned the photos over, feeling disgusted. You could have warned me about how graphic they were." Chad cleared his throat. "Where is your mother?" "My mother? She's in a nursing home on South Henry Street. She's been there for the past 4 years." Chad chuckled. "Convenient, huh?" Frowning, Terry asked, "What? Why don't you tell me what's going on?" "My practice is in cold cases, Terry. Have you ever heard of the Westminster murders?" Terry thought for a moment, and then she replied, "The church townsfolks who were getting butchered?" "Yeah, that." Nodding, Terry replied, "Yeah, I've heard of it, but I was a kid at the time, so I don't know much about it." Somebody was butchering churchgoers twice a week for 4 years out on Westminster. Every now and then a random body would show up near the church, tied and gagged, mutilated horribly, and had burn scars. No one knew who did it. No one could catch the bastard. There were a total of 17 hostages and 16 victims were found. Terry shuddered lightly. "I read it in the paper." And then she paused and looked up at Chad. "Wait, you said 17 hostages and 16 victims. What does that mean?" "It means one of them escaped and didn't die." Terry thought a moment. "Are you saying my mother is the one who escaped?" "Look, I need to speak to your mother. She could have some clue as to who did this. The guy was never caught, Terry. None of the victims ever got any justice, and the families never got answers. Terry shook her head in disbelief. And what makes you think my mother was a hostage? Or that she was the one who got away? Chad took something out of his pocket, and it was in a plastic bag. He pushed it toward her, and it contained an ID, an old college ID. It had her mother's picture when she was young, and a faded name of Cassie Jones. Terry looked up at him. What does this prove? The man who took care of evidence had a bag that he never submitted. It was lost in a pile of junk. I found that after I took on the cold case. No one ever spoke to your mother about any of this. Laughing, Terry replied, and because of this, you think she was number 17 that got away? Come on, detective. I mean, that could be fake. Anything lying in the evidence bank of the FBI can't be forged. Yeah, right, Terry said. I've watched enough crime shows to know that it can be. And besides, my mother has Alzheimer's. Her mind is that of a 5-year-old right now. Chad rubbed his face, frustrated, as he leaned back and replied, Let me try. I need to talk to her. Will you let me do that? If you need me to, I can get a court order and go in too. No, don't do that, Terry said. You might scare her if you do that route. Then she thought about what her mother had said the other day. However, she did mention something strange to me the day I visited her last. What? Chad asked, intrigued. She said, Don't let him catch you. I mean, it could just be anything, but that's something I've never heard her say before. Will you let me see her? Cassie was sitting by the corner of the room looking out the window when Chad entered the room. He was followed by Terry, and he immediately noticed how tense Cassie's shoulders were. The woman had a head of white hair and wore a faded floral gown with a pair of gray socks. Mom? Look who is here to visit you. We have a special guest, Terry said as she walked to her and turned her around. Mom. Where are the birds? Cassie asked. It's colder now, so all the birds have flown down south, Mom. Look, Terry said, pointing to him. I have a friend. His name is Chad. He's here to say hi. Chad walked forward and knelt down before her. Hello, Miss Cassie. I'm Chad. She smiled and blushed. Oh my, are you here to propose to me? Chad smiled and took her hand. If you'd like that, I can, but you must say yes. She blurted out laughing, and then pulled a hand away, covering her cheeks with her hands. Oh no, my husband wouldn't want that. Then she looked up at him again. What did you say your name was? Chad. Oh, that's a nice name. Then she looked at herself. Oh my, I'm not dressed to entertain guests. Mom, it's okay, I'll just grab a sweater for you. Terry quickly went to grab a red sweater and placed it around her mother's shoulder. How's that? Much better, Cassie said with a bright smile. Now, young man, what are you here for? I need to talk to you about something very important. Does the name Westminster ring a bell to you? Chad watched as the bright eyes died, and what replaced them was a darkness that made her lose her smile. She looked away, and then she said, Darling, can you show this guest out, please? Chad stood up. Miss Cassie, get out! Get out of here! Get out, get out, get out, get out! Okay, Mom. Okay, calm down, calm down. Terry turned toward him. You need to leave. Is she feeling better? Chad asked as Terry came down the stairs to join him in the nursing lobby. She's sedated right now. She wouldn't stop fighting the orderlies. I don't think it's a good idea that you come back. You'll just make her angry. Chad smiled, and then he replied, Did you notice her sudden change of emotions? Terry, this tells me that she knows something, and she's been hiding it for the past 30 years. How can you just let this go when so many people out there are wanting answers? Terry shook her head. My mother is not in the right mind right now, detective. How are you going to believe anything she tells you anyways? There are days where she thinks she's the Queen of England. I mean, how will that go before a judge if we were even to find the person responsible for all this? They'd rip her apart and make her sound like an insane witness. That's my job, Chad said with heat. You let me worry about that. And you let me worry about how to take care of my mother. Please, stop. The photos were lying before Chad as he sat in his living room looking over the many pieces of evidence. His job hadn't been easy, and he didn't always want to do it. But when he looked at the many faces who were still fighting for answers, it helped him to stand up again. The Westminster murders occurred 30 years ago when random people from church started disappearing after Mass. Once reported missing, the police didn't find any whereabouts or answers. And then 2 weeks later, after a missing persons was filed, the body showed up. The body was mutilated, bound by rope, and tossed about 2 miles south of the church. The victims were women, early to late 20s, and the most astounding thing that tied all victims together was that they were all single mothers. There were no assault to the bodies, but they were brutally destroyed and always tied. There were 17 hostages taken, and only 16 victims surfaced. When Chad took on the cold case, he was told that the judge threw out the case for the last victim because of evidence that was handled poorly. The bailiff who took care of evidence at the time had retired, and when Chad went to confront him, he mentioned about the dark room on the bottom level where trash was thrown. If not carefully handled, evidence could end up in there. And so Chad started digging. And what did he find? Cassie Jones' college ID. And she was the only one who was still alive today. But Cassie wasn't herself, and he didn't know how to break through to her. Her daughter wasn't much help either, and now he was right back where he started. How could he break the case if the only eyewitness couldn't remember anything? He leaned back in his seat and rubbed the bridge of his nose. What a mess. He'd forgotten to call his son to wish him a happy birthday, and because he was late, his ex-wife had chewed his head off. Through working his way up from officer to detective to the FBI, he lost his marriage. He found himself working such long hours, and his ex-wife was the only one handling their son. She gave up on him right away, just as he made it big and finally got nicer hours. But she walked out on him, and she had just given birth. His son was now 4 and had a new daddy who bought him shiny toys and was always around. His ex-wife took full custody, and he offered to pay child support, but she made a big scene about how poor his salary was and he wouldn't add a single difference. Her new beau made 4 times as much as he did because he was general surgeon. Chad just gave her the finger and left, but he still called his son every now and then. But when he did forget, she made sure the entire world knew. As he sat back, he thought back to Cassie's reaction when he mentioned about the Westminster murders. She had suddenly become very dark, and he knew that she hadn't completely lost every part of her mind. If she could react this way, it meant she could still remember. Perhaps it was repressed memories. But the question was how to get those out. His phone rang, and he picked it up. Chad. Detective? He sat up, hearing Terry's voice. Terry, is that you? Yes, she said with a slow breath. I need your help. What's wrong? My mother. She's missing. Someone took her from the nursing home after your visit with her. I think it has something to do with the case you're working on. When Chad arrived at the nursing home, he found Terry sitting alone in the lobby while the nurses were talking to the officers on scene. The moment she looked up and saw him, she burst into tears. He rushed to her and held her as she emptied her sobs into his arms. I'm so scared, Detective. What happened? I don't know. No one knows what happened, actually. From the looks of her room, it just looks like someone she knew entered and took her. There's no fight or struggle, and none of her clothes are missing. What made you suspect it's the case? Terry took a deep breath. Because of what was written on the wall. You have to go see it. The words, "Catch me," were spray painted on the white wall inside Cassie's room. From studying the kiss files, Chad knew exactly why Terry thought to call him. The bodies that had been mutilated and found had the words "Catch me" carved into the flesh. What do you think? Terry asked. Good question, and I don't have an answer. Until we catch whoever it is, we're in the dark. Terry let out a small sob, and he felt guilty as he looked around the room, hoping to find something out of place to help him make a break, but the room held nothing for him. There were no answers here, and he was left feeling as if he truly lost. What do we do now? Terry asked. We wait. Whoever did this is going to send a message. We'll find out who it is. I'm not sure I can truly believe that. I mean, look at what you're doing. You're the one working the cold case that made whoever did it go after my mother. How am I going to trust that you can help me get her back? Chad smiled and replied, One thing you don't know about me is that I don't give up until I've exhausted everything available to me. This is a fresh wound, Terry, and it's about to get infected real fast. The uglier it gets, the more answers we'll get out of it. We have to be patient to know when we make our move. If we're too fast, we'll lose him. If we're too slow, he'll be moving on to the next victim. So we have to be right on time. In the meantime, I need to know everything about your mother down to the size clothing she wears. Whatever you know that can help, I need to hear it. Okay, Terry said as she let out a hot breath. I can do that part. Cassie Jones had been a single mother raising her older half-brother for 3 years. When her brother passed away, her mother met another man, but sadly that also ended up with them being apart and left her pregnant. Terry grew up with just her mother, and many of the memories included her mom keeping things hidden from view. She never talked about her half-brother or what killed him. She always kept that part of her memory blocked. Terry once saw a photo of him and asked what he was like. Her mother had become silent and then stayed in her room for 2 days. Terry raised herself, really, if she was to be honest, and when she grew up, she repeated the same mistakes her mother made. She fell in love with a man who was married and had an affair with him for a while before she met her ex-husband. But her mother had slowly begun to deteriorate in mind, and there were often times her mom had gone completely mad, and whoever spoke to her was just a stranger. When she brought Cassie to live with her and her ex-husband, she could still handle her mother's emotional spells, but more and more began happening, and she ended up having to send her away. Did you ever notice anything strange with your mother? She had asked one afternoon while they were sitting together, having coffee in her house. It had been 48 hours since her mother had gone missing. She doesn't like holidays. Never did. Each time it comes around, she would always shut herself in her room. Chad made a sad face. It must have been hard as a child to have that around. Shrugging, Terry replied, She wasn't around that much. I was alone most of the time. She sometimes just disappeared even though she was still in the same room with me. That sounds scary. You never thought it was strange for her to do that? My mother had a lot of ghosts in her closet, and I didn't want to know about them. They frightened me, so I kept to myself. But I honestly think that if I had gotten her some help, it may have helped her to keep her mind. Now that when I think about it, she was always muttering about cleanliness and faithfulness. She used to beat me and reminded me to scrub myself clean. You said you had a half-brother. When did he pass away? Terry thought a moment. Around the time my mother was in college, or maybe it was when she dropped out of college. I never really got any concrete answers from her about him. But she met a guy who was married, had a child with him, and he never claimed her or claimed the baby. So she raised him on her own for 3 years, and then suddenly he just passed away. They were all single mothers. Terry looked up dumbfounded. Who were? The victims of the Westminster murders. They were all single mothers. What? Really? Nodding, Chad replied, I've looked over this case piece by piece by piece, and the only thing that tied them together was that they were single mothers. But they were single mothers of just one child. Every one of them died except your mother. She lived while her child died. The rest of them, they died while their child lived on. So what are you saying, that their children had something to do with it? Chad leaned forward, intrigued. What do you mean? Terry shook her head in confusion. I don't know. I mean, saying what you're saying, do you mean to imply that perhaps the baby was the person committing the murders, and that my half-brother wasn't, so he was killed? Chad suddenly stood up and walked to the table where the folders were, and he started flipping through them. I never thought of that idea, honestly. It does make sense, Terry. Why would all the children survive but one? And what was so special about your half-brother? He continued flipping until he landed on something, and he stopped, and then he looked up at her. The children that lived. They were all adopted from the same orphanage. The orphanage stood tall against the azure sky as Chad and Terry made their way up the stairs. The wind had become brutal overnight, and it left the swings on the playground empty. As they entered, the receptionist, who was wearing a gray nun outfit, looked up at them with a gentle smile. "Good morning. How can I help you?" she asked. Chad removed his badge from his pocket. "I spoke to Stephanie about coming." "Oh, yes, she's been waiting for you. Let me show you to her office." The woman named Stephanie was an older woman with dark hair and a set of gentle blue eyes. She wore a gray nun outfit and welcomed the men kindly. 2 cups of steaming coffee were brought in for them. "The children you mentioned were adopted here about 30 years ago. Sometimes they keep contact with us, but majority of the time we don't keep touch with them after they leave our facilities, Detective," Stephanie said. "I am sure you know that all those children were adopted by the women who were victims of the Westminster murders," Chad stated. "Well, Detective, even if they were, I'm not sure what I can do for you. I mean, are you looking for answers that could help solve this for you? Because if you are, I'm clueless." Terry let out a breath, and then something caught her eye. She stood up and walked to the corner of the room where a picture was hung. She turned around and asked, "When was this photo taken?" Stephanie got up and walked to look at the photo and then replied, "About 14 years ago." "Why?" Terry stumbled backwards and almost lost her footing. Chad stood up and walked to steady her, and he looked at the photo. It was a group shot of a few women laughing and having a good time together. "What's wrong with the photo?" Chad asked. Terry pointed to a woman and said, "That's my mother." Stephanie turned to look again, and then she turned around. "Your mother is Cassie? Cassie Jones?" Nodding, Terry replied, "Yes." "That can't be," Stephanie said. "She said she doesn't have children." "What?" "I'm her daughter." Stephanie shook her head and replied, "What I mean is that she can't birth children. She had a terrible miscarriage at a young age and had her uterus removed. So if you are her daughter, you're not her biological daughter." Terry felt faint as she turned to look at Chad. "This is getting really bizarre. My mother, Cassie Jones, is missing right now." "We have reason to believe that she may have been the surviving victim of the Westminster murders. The children that were raised by the single mothers who were killed in that series of murders. All those children were adopted from your orphanage. If you're telling me that Cassie Jones can't have children, then are you saying that Terry here is adopted from your institution too?" Chad asked. Stephanie turned to look at her. "Do you know if you went by another name other than Terry?" "No. I mean, how do you keep record of children who come in?" "By their birth date and the name of the year we accept them. I can look up your birthday and see." She came back to her desk and began typing and then asked for her date of birth. Terry gave it to her, and then she got up to the file cabinets. She rummaged through and then pulled out a folder. She brought it back and handed it to them. With shaking hands, Terry took it and opened. Inside was a glossy 8x10 photograph of her mother holding a baby infant. The date was her birthday, and it was written, "Cassie, with adopted daughter, Terry." She dropped the photo and covered her face, tears consuming her. "Oh my gosh! My entire life has been a lie," Terry whispered. "I remember now why she adopted you. You came to us a very malnourished baby. She said you looked like her sister and wanted to keep you for herself. She could no longer have children, and when she signed to have you, she left working for the orphanage." "Wait," Chen said. "So before then, she knew which children were going in and out of this place?" "Yes. She was the one who got in contact with the parents who were looking to place their child in institutions. She also worked with the people who adopted out and had all their contact information. After she left this place, she changed her number and we never got a hold of her again," Stephanie explained. "However, her son still visits us every now and then." Terry almost dropped dead on her feet. "Son? What son?" "The son she had before her miscarriage. He does work for us and helps us get funding." "Do you have his contact information?" Terry asked. The church stood on the side looking as if it had been abandoned if seen from afar. Terry pulled up and walked up the steps. She could hear music playing inside, and Terry pushed the door open to reveal candles lit everywhere. A young man, a few years older than her, was sitting by the piano playing a tune. When Terry walked in, he looked up at her, then he smiled. Welcome, sister. It took you long enough to come see me. Who are you? Terry asked. Is there any way to greet your dear old brother after so many years? She stopped playing and then he stood up, walking toward her. He was a very handsome man with graying hair about his temples. I've heard all about you, sister. Mother has told me all the tales of your glory. Terry felt her heart beating faster as she watched him smile and walk forward. Where is she? Oh, she's safe. Don't worry about her, she's just fine. But she doesn't want to see you right now, Terry. She's got a lot of repenting to do. She's made so many mistakes, and now it's caught up to her. Terry watched as the young man reached her, and then he cocked his head to one side. You know, I always wanted to meet you. I hoped and prayed that one day we'd get to meet one another, and I'll tell you all about how wonderful it was to watch you grow up. Watch me grow up? I thought you were dead. Mother always said you were dead. Oh, she had to, in order to keep me safe. She had to because I was the single most proud possession in her life. She loved me so much that she had to do that. Whereas for you, well, you were just a little girl who had no history to her name. Even if you died, no one would care. But she ended up actually really loving you. She actually, really, truly loved you. And then she forgot about me. She forgot about me, the one person who saved her soul when she was dying. But you were so young back then. How could you be the killer? Oh, I didn't start out as one. My father was the one who taught me. He taught me everything I needed to know, and eventually took over when he was killed. You see those women who were murdered? Did they ever really love those children? No, they didn't. They wanted money from the government, and they were looking for an easy way out. So they took little children who knew nothing about life and got money from them. And then here comes Mommy Dearest, who fell in love with Father. And after she had me, she had another one, but it ended up where it took her birthing rights away. It was Mother who lured everyone to him, and he took their lives, making them pay for not taking care of those children. You know, those children, they deserved to go back to the institution where they were taken care of. Terry began shaking and she started backing away. Where was Chad? He said he was going to be her backup. She kept her voice steady as she said, So your father killed every one of those women. And what happened to him? Ask Mother. And at that moment, her mother came out from one of the rooms, walking in without a single pause. Her face was nowhere near what she remembered in the nursing home, and Terry felt betrayed. She watched as she came up to her and gave her a smile. Darling, Cassie said, you should have just stopped looking. It wouldn't have done you any good. You should have just been a good girl. Tears fell down Terry's face as she sobbed and shook her head. You're a monster. I killed the monster himself. He deserved it. I didn't let him catch you, did I? I made sure of it. But the rest of them, they deserved it. They were sleeping with him. They were wanting my life, and so I had to end it for them. And then I ended him. Lies. All my life. It's a lie, Terry cried. But I saved you, Cassie said as she came forward, her arms reaching out. I love you, darling. Come here. No one needs to know anything. No one needs to know about what I did. No one needs to know. It can be buried with everything. No one has to know. But you already told the entire world, Mother, Terry said as she pulled out her phone. It had been streaming live, and Cassie's face turned wicked as she charged forward. The gunshot came from the window and it hit her mother's shoulder. She went down, and Terry screamed as her brother came running toward her. A second gunshot came, and it took him down. She covered her head with her hands as the door opened and Chad entered with the FBI SWAT team following behind. He came to her and helped her to stand up. Are you okay? He asked. She let out a sob and fell into his arms. No, but I will be. And at that very moment, her mother stood up again, rushing toward her. and Chad fired another single shot, taking out her mother's life. "You will never get away with this. You will never get away with this," her brother said. Terry looked up at him and said, "I hope the Lord forgives you." Thank you for tuning in to this short mini thriller. I hope that you enjoy that. I will see you in the next episode.
이런 적 없지 널 본 적이 없으니까 You keep me up every night 내 빛의 띠같이 마침표 없는 dream I can't help falling in love Maybe I just wanna feel like you la 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 Next to me right here right now 밝아오는 아침이 약속할 만큼 난 너를 더 알고 싶어 I wanna dive into your arms Nowhere to hide Just like You're beautiful nightmare You're beautiful nightmare Beautiful nightmare And I want to stay there with you 돌이킬 수도 없을 만큼만 달콤한 고통은 다다라다 손 내밀면 닿을 듯 한 줌의 신기루 눈물로 사라진다 I wanna dive into your arms Nowhere to hide Just like You're beautiful nightmare You're beautiful nightmare Beautiful nightmare And I want to stay there with you I want to dive into your arms I want to into your arms I wanna stay there with you Nightmare, nightmare You're beautiful nightmare You're beautiful nightmare Beautiful nightmare And I want to stay there with you